Anything else?
So nice to meet you. Yeah, first time meeting you in person. I appreciate your advocating.
I think
You know, like, sometimes things shouldn't be that hard, but they are. So we have to fight it out. Yeah. Thank you so much.
thank you for coming. We appreciate you both.
Let's just hold on.
The public advocate is on his way over. If
Okay.
we need whatever.
Juvie, can you? Okay, thank you. Everyone, if you're here to stand for survivors, please come forward. Everyone to come to advocate for laws against survivors, a pathway to justice, please come forward. Stand together, you're welcome. If you're a supporter of survivors and you're here, we appreciate it. We want you to be seen if you're comfortable being here in front.
We'll let. Okay, we gotta squeeze in a little bit, guys, because the camera's. And Jerry, make sure to put the water behind him.
Yeah,
So it's not shot. We can come. We can have some of you guys come here in the front, and you. Yeah. Very good. We love you. Where is Mary? Right here. Mary can stand here with our survivors. We need more on this side? Do you want to take those two from the top? This corner. These two of you guys can come to this side. Yeah, you and here. Sorry.
All right, sound check. Sound check. Can you hear us? Good? All right. We are here today to demand a vote on Intro 1297, a bill to amend the Gender Motivated Violence Protection Law. This bill, a vote on Intro 1297, is urgently needed by hundreds and hundreds of survivors of sexual violence in New York City. The hundreds of survivors of sexual violence in New York City juvenile detention centers deserve a vote on Intro 1297. The survivors of sexual violence at hospitals and medical institutions in New York City who are sexually abused by Dr. Robert Haddon, who are sexually abused by Dr. Reginald Archibald, deserve a vote. The victims of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking in New York City deserve a fair pathway to justice. They deserve a vote on Intro 1297. Speaker Adams, the people of New York want to know why, when this bill was introduced 4 months ago, when this bill is co-sponsored by 2/3 of the city council members, why have you not allowed a hearing? Why have you not allowed a vote? The people have the right to be heard. They have a right to have their legal rights voted upon. We have survivors here. We have elected officials here that support the rights of survivors of sexual violence. We are grateful for the members of the City Council that are doing everything they can to change the law to support these survivors. I'd like to start by introducing Council Member Sylvina Brooks Powers. I'd like to introduce Council Member Brooks Powers, who's been a leader and is a lead sponsor in this bill, Intro 1297, and we're grateful. Councilmember Brooks Powers, thank you.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin by thanking the survivors who are here today. Your courage, your strength, and your persistence are why we are standing here today. I also want to thank the lawyers and advocates from the New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault, the NAACP, and so many others who have never stopped fighting for justice. And thank you to my colleagues in government. We're going to be joined by Public Advocate Jamani Williams. We are joined also by Chair Farrah Lewis, as well as Councilmember De La Rosa, and others for standing with us in this moment. I also want to give a special thank you to my colleague, former Councilmember Carlina Rivera, who first introduced this legislation. I'm honored to have now taken on the role as the prime sponsor to carry it forward. The recent court decision dismissing hundreds of juvenile detention abuse cases was devastating. Survivors who put their trust in our legal system, who step forward despite the pain of reliving trauma, have now been told that they don't have the right to seek justice against the very institutions that failed them. That's unacceptable. As someone who worked in the mayor's office to combat domestic violence before joining the city council, and someone with lived experience, I have spent years fighting to protect survivors and expand their access to justice. And I can tell you, survivors deserve more than sympathy. They deserve accountability. They deserve the chance to hold both abusers and institutions responsible. And they deserve action from their elected officials. That is why I am championing Intro 1297. This bill will address the recent decision by the courts and make it clear that institutions, not just individuals, can and must be held liable. Without immediate action, more survivors will see their cases thrown out, and more powerful institutions will walk away without consequence. And we are not alone in this fight. As of today, 34 of my colleagues have signed on in support of this bill. That is 2/3 of the council, and it sends a clear message that we are united in demanding justice for survivors. This women-led council has a responsibility to deliver on our promise of equity and justice. Intro 1297 is not just about correcting legal interpretation. It's about saying to every survivor, we see you, we hear you, and we will not allow the system to fail you again. The council must act swiftly. We cannot wait. Every day that passes risks another dismissal, another door slammed in a survivor's face. Let's get the bill passed, and let's get it passed now. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce another advocate for survivors, Councilmember Farrah Lewis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Farrah Lewis, trying to compete with the noise over there. I want to thank Councilmember Brooks Powers, former Councilmember Carlina Rivera, and all the advocates for their staunch support for Intro 1297. And I want to thank the Majority Whip, Brooks Powers. Good. I want to thank our Majority Whip, Brooks Powers, for her leadership in convening today with our advocates. It's absolutely unacceptable that this bill, which would address the looming crisis in our criminal justice system, continuing to languish while countless survivors are left without a fair path to justice. Every day, more than 700 cases are at risk of dismissal because of legal technicality. For the past several years, domestic violence prevention and the pursuit of justice for survivors has been among the highest priorities of this legislative body. The council passed the gender-motivated Violence Act with the clear intent to hold institutions that enabled abuse in our city accountable. Agencies like NYPD, ACS, Horizon Juvenile Center, and Rikers. But with this recent court ruling narrowing its scope, we risk stripping survivors of the rights we promised them. In Intro 1297, it's an opportunity to make that promise whole again. At a time when survivors are at risk of being denied accountability and healing, it is our responsibility to ensure that the protections we enacted are preserved and strengthened. We must allow this bill to be heard under my committee immediately and bring Intro 1297 to a vote, because we will not turn our backs on survivors. We will not allow institutions that enable violence to escape accountability. Survivors deserve justice, and this council must deliver it now. And I also want to share, having a lived experience, it is mind-boggling to me that we would allow city politics and bureaucracy to hold back opportunities for justice for survivors. So we have an opportunity now to stand up for survivors all over the city that are asking for one thing. Let's not let these nuances and anomalies to hold them back from justice. And we have that opportunity with Intro 1297. Thank you.
All right, we're going to do our best. I think that they're intent on getting that wood into that truck, and I don't think we can stop it. So we're going to do our best. And I think what you just heard there was Councilmember Lewis is the chair of the Women and Gender Equity Committee, and she's saying that she's ready to bring this up for a hearing and a vote, and that politics are currently getting in the way of that, and that is unacceptable. I'd like to now introduce the Majority Leader of the City Council, Amanda Farias.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm extremely proud to be here today with my colleagues, with survivors and advocates in strong support of Introduction 1297, a bill that reopens the look-back window for survivors and gender-motivated violence. This legislation, for me, and I think for many of us here, is about justice. It's about making sure that no survivor is denied their day in court simply because of a deadline on a calendar. We know that trauma does not move on a schedule. We know that for many survivors, it can take years, even decades, to be ready to come forward. And when they do, they should be met with open doors, not closed ones. I want to take a moment to recognize two colleagues who have been essential to this fight. First, former Councilmember Carlina Rivera, who led the way in creating this legislation and ensuring that survivors' voices were heard. And luckily, we have our Majority Whip, Salvina Brooks Powers, who has carried this work forward with determination and compassion to get us to this moment we are in today. Their leadership is why we're able to stand here united in saying that justice has no expiration date. When the council passed the original law in 2022, we took a bold step forward in centering survivors. But we also heard from so many who, for one reason or another, could not come forward in time. That's why we're here today, to make sure that no one is left behind. This bill ensures that survivors have had the chance to hold perpetrators accountable, no matter how much time has actually passed. And by doing so, we make our city safer. Because when people know that they can be held accountable, they think twice before causing harm. Passing Intro 1297 means that New York City continues to lead the way in the fight for gender equity. It sends a message loud and clear. Gender-based violence will not be ignored, and survivors will always have champions inside City Hall. So to every survivor here today, and to those watching from home, know this: we believe you, we support you, and we are here fighting for you. Let's pass 1297 and finish the work we started. And I want to end with, currently this bill has over 34 sponsors in this committee, meaning a hearing should come immediately to ensure that we can take this fight to a passed piece of legislation and into the city charter. Thank you all for joining us.
I think we have other elected officials, other members of the city council here. Okay, I'd like to introduce now Councilmember De La Rosa, who's been fighting hard for survivors, including getting a vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also the co-chair of the Women's Caucus, and that point can't be lost on us. This is a women's-led city council, the first one in the history of our city. And so as women, we have to stand up and lock arms and make sure that we pass this bill. We have to make sure that, as our majority leader said, politics doesn't get in the way of justice. And I want to say that I was proud as a state assembly member a few years ago to vote for the Child Victims Act. And then we saw the legislature pass the Adult Survivors Act. This is a continuation of justice for those people who have been harmed by systems designed to keep people quiet and to keep them down. But this afternoon, we're joined by survivors who have had to take their cases to the courts. These lawsuits are providing a semblance of justice for the years of trauma and harm that institutions in our city have done to protect predators. And so our city, we can't continue to remain silent. And the best way that we speak is by making sure that our laws do the talking. And so I'm here supporting our majority whip, Savina Brooks Powers, our chair, Farrah Lewis, and the entire council in calling on this to pass. We have a few more months left of this administration. So let this not be the legacy that we leave in City Hall by not providing justice to 700 plus survivors that are still waiting for their day in court. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to introduce now the public advocate, Juvenile Williams, and I'll tell you that the public advocate has been with these survivors in this fight with them for at least a year and a half, going back to when these cases were first brought. He has stood with them. He has spoken out for them. He has promised them that he would fight for justice for them, and he is continuing to deliver on that promise. And thank you, Public Advocate Juvenile Williams, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Peace and blessings, love and light to everyone. Thank you for the continued work that you've been doing, and all of our attorneys and our lead sponsor Brooks Powers, and I know Councilmember Rivera was mentioned as well, and all my colleagues who are here. Most importantly, to the survivors, thank you so much. I can only imagine the difficulties of having to relive trauma time and time again. But thank you doing it not just for yourself, but for so many people who are still on that journey and cannot yet do what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, it was mentioned the other types of bills that were passed that provided the look-back period that was needed. That's the same thing that's happening here. So people have to answer to why they would support that kind of look-back period, but not one here on the city. When we see hundreds of cases being thrown out, you read them as numbers when you're looking at the data or reading an article, but I want to make sure we put faces and names to those numbers. Those are individual people who have been dealing with this trauma for a long time. No one was sent to any of these systems and was sentenced to sexual assault or sentenced to sexual violence. Nobody was. And how do you expect to make changes if there's absolutely no accountability at all? Whether it is the Catholic Church or it is New York City, there has to be accountability for what is happening. We can't just look at how much it costs and the difficulties of it. We have to look at how do we get it done. That's the only thing that we should be asking. How do we get it done? And then let's do it. Because there are people who have been accused previously who are still working in these spaces. That doesn't make any sense. New York City, unfortunately, were responsible for what happened here as a government and as a city. There got to be responsibility for that. There has to be accountability for that. This bill provides that. It provides some time for people who have struggled to deal with this through their entire life. I need folks to sit with that. What you're struggling with for your entire life, talk about gender-based violence, I also want to bring up the men who have been dealing with this. In this society, sometimes it's even harder for the men to come forward. And there's a lot of them that we've seen. This is about good government. This is about public safety. This is about justice. There are numbers behind the name, and we have the power to do something about it. Not how much it costs, not the difficulties of it, but how do we get it done? How do we provide some semblance of justice to people who are under our care and were done wrong, often repeatedly, with some of the people still under the employ of this city. We have to make sure that there's a change. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings.
Thank you so much, Mr. Public Advocate. We have a number of other speakers. I want to introduce Mary Soto. Mary Soto is one of the survivors from the New York City Juvenile Detention Centers. She is a daughter. She is a mother. She is a wife. She is a law student. She is, adding to the things that Mary is, the extraordinary things, she is an advocate for survivors. She's an advocate not only for her own rights, but for other survivors. And I want to tell you, when you read and heard about that order from the Bronx trial judge dismissing over 400 cases, Mary is one of those survivors whose cases was dismissed by the judge in the Bronx. We are fighting to have her case reinstated. We are fighting for these changes in the law, and Mary is fighting for her own rights, and she's here to speak out today.
Good afternoon. You guys could hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Soto, and I'm here today to plead with my city, New York City, the city with the beautiful lights I used to watch from my window. I remember how the moon could shine so brightly over the city that never sleeps. But now, it feels like we are sleeping on one of the biggest issues that continues to be swept under the rug, the abuse that has happened and is still happening in the juvenile system. I was once the youth of tomorrow. Now I am the adult of today. And as an adult, a mother, a wife, a daughter, and a student, I want to talk about the real issues. The things kids are afraid to speak about, and the things adults carry in silence because they feel ashamed. I remember when all of this started. I remember closing the doors in my mind just to move forward, to forget everything I endured as a child. Whew. But then I remember the most painful part, the feeling of not being protected. As minorities, we grow up facing challenges that follows us into adulthood, that lead to poverty, to fear, to crime, to silence. Fear of being different. Fear that people will only see what you did, not what your abuser did. And I cannot believe that we're still allowing that. I know many members of the New York City Council have broken chains that once held people like me back. You've opened doors so that other minorities can dream of running for council, of running for mayor, of being seen. And today I want to speak directly to the first ever African American Speaker of the Council, the first woman to represent District 28, a woman who has fought against inequalities. A woman who expanded support for crime victims in communities that face high levels of violence but remain underserved. Let me say that again, deserved. That's us. We are still one of those communities because too many people believe that just because years have passed, we've forgotten. But have we? Have we forgotten? Don't we also matter? Imagine the girls and boys out there right now, the ones still in the same shoes I once wore. The ones trying to find the courage to speak up. So I'm not standing here just for myself. I speak for my community and for all underprivileged, underserved communities. I may be standing as an I, but I am speaking as a we. We are standing together. We are ready to get justice for all. For the 11-year-old who went from the foster system into another system that failed, is still trapped in the system today. For the young man forced to believe the system is broken, so why bother following the rules? For those whose sadness turned into anger, whose pain never healed, I see you, we see you, and now the world sees you. We have to be real about what's happening. Our children are more than undeserved. They're being ignored. To those who walked away from this fight, come back. We need you. If you can't speak up, do it. And if you can't, reach out to us. We will share your story. I do this for my 13-year-old son and my 4-year-old daughter, who are home with my husband right now, believing that their wife is a superhero. I do this for their friends who aren't here with us, so they can look down and see that someone finally spoke up, and now we're here. Now we fight. We fight for something that was never our fault. To my brothers and sisters in the systems around the world, New York City is going to make it happen. We are going to be the city that never sleeps because we're fighting for injustice. The same injustice we've always fought, just wearing a different face. Lady Justice wears a blindfold to represent fairness, justice without bias, without status, without favoritism. But maybe it's time we lift that blindfold, just enough for her to see what's really happening, because the justice that she represents is not happening for us. We're asking for the chance to share our stories, not for pity, but for truth, to make sure the world knows that we are taking a stand against institutions that take advantage of children. We are no longer victims, we are survivors. People always talk about movements. This is a movement, and we will keep fighting until the end. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mary. And we've heard about the survivors of horrific sexual abuse in the New York City juvenile detention centers like Mary, and we're going to hear from more survivors. But I want to introduce right now attorney Jordan Merson, who is a survivors' rights lawyer who represents a number of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking. And I want it to be clear that this law is one that affects survivors sexually violated in many different realms. And Jordan can talk about the situation.
My name is Jordan Merson, Jordanmerson. I'm here on behalf of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and many other victims of sexual abuse. I'm standing here today with one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. She is coming forward for the first time now. It takes time for survivors to come forward. They do not think in their head that there is a statute of limitations. I'm going to keep it short and to the point. Thank you to all of you and to you for the work that you've done. But my message today is to Speaker Adams. Speaker Adams, are you going to side with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, sexual abuse survivors of juvenile detention, or are you going to help the sex predators keep them from justice? It is a simple choice. When I tell people about this press conference and what it's about, they ask, what are we even talking about? Speaker Adams, are you going to look all these people and say, we're not going to help survivors? You're critical of the federal government. If you don't give these people justice, you are no different than the federal government on this issue. You have an opportunity to do the right thing. If you are not convinced by today's meeting, by today's pep rally, I invite you. We represent numerous survivors. Some are African American victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Meet with us, and you can hear firsthand about what they went through and why you should just put this law up for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to introduce you to another survivor. This man, Kendu Starmel. Yes. Kendu Starmel had his case dismissed with over 400 cases in the Bronx. We're fighting to get that state we're fighting to get the case reinstated so we can move forward with this law and through other measures. I want to tell you something. This survivor, Kendu, drove here from South Carolina. He is a longtime former New York resident who now works as an auto technician in Columbia, South Carolina. And he drove here more than 10 hours?
10 hours, yes, sir.
He drove here 10 hours so he could come here and speak out for his legal rights. Thank you, Kendu.
Yes, sir. Good morning, people of America. I'm a survivor of the Juvenile Detention Center, but that happened plenty of years ago, and I have changed my whole life. I've bettered myself. But this is about due process. All we asking for is them to be accountable for due process. Without no due process, it's a violation of our constitutional rights and our human rights as human people. It's really hard for a male figure to say that he was abused by another male and accept that. So for all of these years, I've been having post-traumatic juvenile syndrome and having dreams of this nightmare that occurred so many years ago, you know, that people overlook. This is not about black and white. This is not about male or female. It's about due process. So we know Mayor Adams going to do the right thing. We know he's going to do that because he's for the people. If you're for the people, this is the voice of the people. Your own peers are asking you respectfully to pass Intro 1297. So me as a juvenile survivor, and now that I'm an adult and I still have like psychological problems with swallow, I couldn't even tell my own parents what occurred. Nobody knows what occurred with me when I was in Spofford Juvenile Center back in 1982. But now they probably get a little glimpse of it now because they see the news. But it's really hard for me to speak as a male figure who has been abused. So I can understand when females say, this is my body. It's the same thing with a man, this is my body. You know, and they need to put in place rules and regulations, you know, where people who can't get assaulted, you know, juveniles that's infants, they infants in foster homes, in group homes, in juvenile detention, in Rikers Island. We are getting abused, not only here, but worldwide. It's things that's being covered up. Y'all say y'all don't like cover-ups. So please, uncover the truth on all of these cases and let it be revealed. Let us have our day in court. Let us have our due process. That's all we asking for, due process. Is that much? Y'all say it's a constitutional right. So if it's a constitutional right, don't try to fight us on something that the people is right about. Let us have our day. Don't be lackadaisical in passing this rule, please. Respectfully, we asking that. And with that, I'm clear. And I got to say, I love my AVP family, Alternative to Violence, and the people that's standing here with me. For me, thank you. I respect y'all, and I love y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendu.
Yes, sir.
We also have, I just want to acknowledge that we have other elected officials here. Councilmember Hudson, who is co-sponsoring the bill. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, someone will tap me on the shoulder if anyone else wants to speak, okay? I want to introduce another courageous survivor, Rashawn Jones. Rashawn Jones is another survivor whose case was just dismissed by the trial court in the Bronx. We are fighting to get his case reinstated so it can move forward under a new law, under this amendment to the gender violence law. Rashawn is another future lawyer.
Yes, sir.
We got another future lawyer. He's here to not only fight for his own legal rights, but the rights of others. Go ahead, Rashawn. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashawn Jones. I'm here again because what happened to us and what happened to me still hasn't been made right. I was just 16 years old when I was abused by a staff member at Horizon Juvenile Center. Someone had power over me, someone who was supposed to protect me. What happened to me changed my life forever. I spent years working through the mental and emotional damage, trying not to let that pain define who I am. But even now, after finding the courage to come forward, it feels like the system is turning its back on us again. When we brought this case, we believed the law was meant to give survivors like us a chance to be heard, a chance to hold people accountable, and a chance to heal. But instead, our cases were dismissed, not because we lied, not because what happened didn't matter, but because of unclear language in the law. The same law that was supposed to protect survivors is now being used to silence us. We were silenced when we were kids out of fear of retaliation, fear that no one will believe us. Now that we found our voice, we're being told it doesn't count. How is that justice? Intro 1297 is about fixing this failure. It's about making sure survivors like me aren't punished for the fear we live through. It's about stopping a system that protects perpetrators while turning away from the people they harmed. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for change. I don't want another 16-year-old to go through what I did and then be told that pain doesn't matter. I'm asking the city council to do the right thing. Pass Intro 1297, stand with survivors, and don't let the system silence us again. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashawn. And I just want to say this is the perfect split screen, okay? You have vulnerable New Yorkers. They want their voices heard. They know they have to compete with, the mayor's election and things that, like Donald Trump news every day. They want their voices heard. I also want to make clear that this also affects people that were sexually abused by doctors and medical institutions, large medical institutions in New York that enabled sexual violence against patients. And we have some of the survivors and some of the advocates on that issue to speak.
Hi, everyone. So I don't have a speech. I was not planning to speak here today, but I feel like it's really important for us to bring light to this case that some of y'all might not know. So it's the Robert Haddon case. This is my sisters. This is 3 out of thousands of women that were sexually assaulted by a doctor under the New York Presbyterian Columbia University, Robert Haddon. We benefited from the Adult Survivors Act. We are a full testament of how this is the only glimpse of hope that you have to be able to at least have some sort of feeling that you were heard. It's not enough. I'll say that, and my sisters can speak on that. I think we need to hold these institutions really accountable for this not to happen anymore. No amount of money, no amount of bills will make us feel better, but at least the passive of any of these bills will make not just women, men, children, and anyone going through the same thing feel like they were heard at least some sort of a little bit. I'm going to have Lori say some words, at least 30 seconds, because it's really important for you to see the many phases of assault. I am from the Dominican Republic, and just like Mari, I felt really afraid to speak on what happened to me for years, because I am still undocumented, and I'm still afraid to be here today, and I feel like it is important, and I thank every single one of you for standing up for us so Mari and so many others can come forward and not feel afraid anymore. Thank you so much for giving us this day.
I'm just so grateful for all the brave survivors behind me. I stood in Times Square when ASA was passed, and I remember being terrified of sharing my story of being assaulted by Robert Haddon and it being covered up by Columbia University. So it's just such a full circle moment to have watched Haddon be tried as a criminal, be sentenced to life without prison, to be able to speak at that trial with hundreds of other survivors. And it has been so powerful to have ASA to be able to have this law that allowed us to hold Columbia University and the hospitals accountable. We want that for you. We want that for you. We were the beneficiaries, and my sisters and I stand here for you. So thank you for your bravery. And we support you, and we stand with survivors.
Thank you. All right, so we've heard from survivors of sexual violence from the New York City Juvenile Detention Centers, from Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking, from those abused by doctors, and we need this change in the law to hold these institutions accountable in New York City, the greatest city in the world. And I also want to introduce one of the nonprofit advocacy leaders, the New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault, and their leader, Emily Miles, are fighting for survivors of sexual violence. They're fighting for this change in the law. Emily?
Hi. My name is Emily Miles. I'm the Executive Director of the New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault. We represent survivor-serving organizations in New York City and across New York State. We are here in strong support of Intro 1297 because the urgency could not be clearer. Survivors of gender-motivated violence, including those harmed in institutions that willfully allowed the abuse to take place, have waited long enough for justice. Too many people were silenced, disbelieved, or shut out by the legal system. Trauma delayed their ability to come forward, and by the time they did, arbitrary deadlines barred their claims. Intro 1297 gives survivors a real chance to be heard by reopening a one-year window to pursue civil action, not just against perpetrators, but against the institutions that enabled this abuse. This bill says plainly, the city will not protect those who knowingly looked the other way. This need is urgent. Just weeks ago, a Bronx judge dismissed hundreds of lawsuits from people who reported sexual abuse in juvenile detention centers. Think about that. Hundreds of survivors, brave enough to file their cases, were told that the courthouse doors were closed to them. Those dismissals are not isolated incidents. They are a warning that without swift legislation, survivors will continue to be re-traumatized and denied access to justice. Every day that we wait, survivors remain in limbo, and institutions that perpetrated abuse remain shielded. Passing Intro 1297 is not about opening the floodgates, it's about accountability. It's about saying that when systems and leaders fail to protect children and vulnerable people, they will be held responsible. To survivors, your voices matter. We see you, we hear you, and we will not stop fighting for your day for accountability. To the council, now is the time to act. Justice delayed is already justice denied. Do not let technicalities erase decades of pain. Pass Intro 1297 swiftly and show survivors of New York City that the city stands with them, that the council stands with them, and we will honor their stories. Thank you.
Okay, we have another city council member who's co-sponsoring Intro 1297, Council Member Mercedes Narcisse.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mercedes Narcisse. I represent the 46th District. But being here, what it means for me as a registered nurse is saying the survivors, those that take the step to say, you did something wrong, and I'm here, I'm a person. I want to let you know that we are with you. And I have my colleagues here that's always fighting for the betterment of a community. And when you attack someone and you get away with it, that's not justice. It's when the survivors talk, we have to listen. And I'm so happy to co-sponsor and always be on the side of the right choice that we have to make in our society. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for some folks, but sometimes we have to do uncomfortable things to say you got to stop. It's not acceptable in our society when someone tells you to stop and then you got to stop. When someone tells you I got hurt, we need a place, the safe place where that person can go and say I've been hurt and I've been hurt and I want someone to listen to me and to get justice with me. As a mom, I'm going to say I'm here for my daughter to say you can be stronger, you can fight back, and we're always going to stand together to fight back for anyone that feel like there's no justice for you. We are here in the council to say we're going to fight with you and we're going to get justice for you. So thank you for all the organizations that have been supporting, that have been listening, that have been fighting to make sure New York City, we can open our voice, we can open our, our whatever the hurt that we have, we can talk about it and we can have supporters. So thank you for all of you for standing here. Justice for survivors. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We're gonna at this point we're gonna end the press conference, and there could be some questions taken on the side, but I want to be respectful for schedules, and so thank you very much for being here. Yeah, it's true. Can you?